Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tagar. Welcome to our 357th magnificently mapping the end of the show episode of MandoVision. I'm your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. Reach out to us on those socials, Mando_Vision on X and Insta. You can also find me on Blue Sky at MandoVision, and you can email the show, MandoVisionTom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we are back for another episode on our Star Wars Rebels rewatch, and we have reached the final four. That's right, the final 4 episodes of the final season of Star Wars Rebels. And things are coming to a head fast and furious. It's funny, I went ahead and I've watched these final 4 episodes because as I've stated several times throughout this rewatch, like there are just things I don't remember. So getting into this was really exciting for me. I remember the broad strokes. I didn't remember all the details. So going back and watching these has been very awesome, very exciting. So I went ahead and I've watched these last 4 episodes because I want to kind of be able to see how they connect the dots. And like there are some things that we'll talk about when we get to them that that kind of came out of left field, didn't it? But we'll get there. We'll talk about those things. I mean, again, they lay the track, but they kind of ask you to make some jumps to go with them on a couple things, and we will talk about those. But this episode very much feels like it's getting us ready to get to the end game. To borrow a term from Marvel and Doctor Strange. But this episode really kind of puts things into perspective. Our heroes are going to rally after the death of Kanan Jarrus, and now it's time to really focus on what they've been trying to do the entire time: save Lothal. That's how the show started, and that's how we're going to end. Yes, we went on some deviations from that main quest in the second and third seasons of the show, where we left, and we had some galaxy-spanning adventures with pirates and smugglers and all kinds of great stuff. But since, the back half of last season, we have been squarely focused. Ezra has been squarely focused on the liberation of his homeworld of Lothal, and this episode really begins to kick things off for that. And so we're going to talk about the episode, we're going to get into it, and I don't see why we shouldn't just dive into it right now. So let's go ahead and get our episode particulars out of the way and give credit where credit is due. This is Star Wars Rebels, Season 4, Episode 12, Wolves in a Door. Original air date is February 26, 2018. The episode has a plot that reads as: Ezra leads the Ghost Crew back to the Jedi Temple in Lothal, where they discover that the Empire has diabolical plans for the powerful secrets it holds. The episode's directed by Dave Filoni and Bosco and G, written by Dave Filoni. Story editors, of course, Stephen Melsheen. Our voice cast for this week's episode: Taylor Gray is Ezra Bridger, Vanessa Marshall is Harrison Dula, Tier Sakar is Sabine Wren, Steve Blum is Zeb Aurelios, Dave Filoni's Chopper, Ashley Eckstein is Ahsoka Tano, Adrienne Wilkinson is the daughter, Ian McDiarmid is Emperor Palpatine, Lars Mikkelsen is Grand Admiral Thrawn, Matthew Wood is basically all the Imperials, Jason Isaacs, of course, returns as the Inquisitor, sort of, Freddie Prinze Jr. is Kanan Jarrus, and Malcolm McDowell comes to the Star Wars universe as Minister Hayden. Oh, all right. Let's go ahead. Let's do it. Let's get into it. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
All right, let's talk about it. This episode does, in fact, feature wolves and a door, so it is a completely accurate description of the episode. One of the more on-the-nose titles we've seen for Star Wars Rebels thus far. But hey, I guess at this point in the show, you got 4 episodes left. Like, why not? Why overthink it? Let's just get into it. As I stated before, the episode is very much putting things into place for the final push to really get things started. But it's a big episode nonetheless because, again, we are still sort of trying to understand Lethal's connection to the Force and the creatures of Lethal and their connection to the Force. Again, this episode relies heavily on the Lothwolves and their ability to traverse the planet in a unique fashion, to say the least. And it's their connection to the planet that is what has alerted Ezra to what's going on at the temple there in Lethal. So that's where we start off. Ezra he's presenting the stone tablet that the Lothwolves gave to him at the end of last episode, and it's sort of asking. I think naturally he goes to Sabine because it seems to be like some sort of piece of art of some kind, but it also seems to be, at least to the untrained eye, some sort of map, if you will, with 3 hands on it. We will quickly find out whose hands these are. But the whole motivation is like, we need to figure out what this is. This is a key piece of Jedi lore of the Force, and it could fall into the hands of the Empire. So we have to figure out what's going on over there and stop it. So for some reason, they don't have access to the Ghost, and they have to go from the southern hemisphere of the planet to the northern hemisphere, the far northern hemisphere part of the hemisphere. The top, they have to go very, very north. Let's put it that way, of Lethal to be where the temple is at. But again, for some reason, they don't have access to the Ghost. I'm not quite sure if I remember why that is, but they don't. So Ezra calls on the Lothwolves for assistance to help them cover the distance. Zeb seems reluctant. He's like, why can't we just take speeders? Well, again, the Lothwolves, they got powers. They can do things. They can access the Force and create like wormholes through time and space to close the distance from point A to point B. And that's what we get. We get a great sequence of our heroes mounting Lothwolves and riding through the plains of Lethal, and then sort of sinking into the plains of Lethal and entering sort of a hyperspace-like vortex, again, a wormhole through time and space, to get them to their destination. But this time through their journey is images of the past, right? We see Hera, we see Kanan Jarrus, we see the Inquisitor, a lot of flashbacks to powerful moments from previous seasons of the show, and then we awaken where we need to be. Then we're in the far north of the northern hemisphere of Lethal. We aren't quite at the temple. The Lothwolves say that it's just to the northwest, but they have to cover the rest of the distance on ground. Easy peasy. Our heroes are sort of shocked by the journey. Zeb and Sabine specifically. Sabine asks Zeb if he heard the voices in the tunnel as well, and Zeb seems to sort of be in denial about the whole situation. Surprise, surprise. I wanted to mention, because it was one of the funnier parts of the opening of the episode. It was the Spectres mounting the Lothwolves, right? Zeb obviously the most reluctant to mount a Lothwolf, and there's 4. Well, how's Chopper getting around? Oh, that Lothwolf's just gonna pick him up and put him in his mouth. That made me laugh. I thought that was pretty darn funny. So we are now in the northern hemisphere. It is time to get a gander, take a peek at what the Imperials are doing to the Jedi Temple. As Ezra observes, it appears that the temple has somehow sealed itself off, but that has not stopped the Empire from sort of excavating the temple itself and pulling up artifacts from the ground. They've created a big giant. I don't even know. They just, again, excavation is the best word I can use for it. They've dug it out, and they have started to find paintings and other artifacts. And they have this guy, Minister Hayden, played by Malcolm McDowell, who definitely has like Emperor Stooge kind of written all over him, just right. His visual appearance, kind of hunched over older guy with a weird hat, fits right in with Satipa Stage as well. And So this guy's sort of running things. It's not a military operation. They decide that very, very quickly because, again, there's like sort of this excavation, this archaeology sort of project going on. It's very Indiana Jones like. And in the midst of all this is a giant mural that's sort of the focal point of the Imperial efforts. And it is a picture of the Mortis gods. It is the daughter, the father, and the son. And it's very grandiose. I don't know what to say. It's a beautiful piece of imagery. I love the way they sort of do the 2D art on top of the 3D art. And when they animate that later on in the episode, it's spectacular. It looks great. We've seen something similar before when we heard the tale of Tar Vizsla and the Darksaber. You know, something very similar was done in that episode as well. Good stuff here. Again, how best to say it? I don't want to jump too far ahead, I guess. I guess is the thing. I gotta pull back a little bit. You know, because Hera's being cautious, right? She doesn't want to go down the rabbit hole here. She's still grieving for Kanan, and I think she's scared of losing her friends. So when she finds out that Emperor Palpatine is very, very involved in this project because they monitor communications from Coruscant, and here Hayden and Palpatine discussing the Mortis gods and the temple and the gateway to a world between life and death, and whoever takes control of it can control the galaxy. So you hear that, and Hera is initially fearful, right? This is big. You're going up against the big bad of the Galactic Empire, and I think her initial reaction is to fall back and be fearful. But it's Zeb who reminds her that, hey, you know, why are we here? You know, and Sabine says that if Palpatine's involved, this is why we have to stop this. So they sort of, it causes Hera to pause and sort of reflect and then sort of feel that Kanan is with her and that, yes, it's not the right time to be afraid. That, yes, this is what they're here to do. They're here to stop this. This is part of saving Lothal. So they get to go ahead. And we get a very Indiana Jones map room-esque like sequence of Sabine and Ezra trying to figure out the map. Now, I do want to go back because, again, they took the guys of some speeder bike troopers, knocked them out while they were on patrol, and then they sort of infiltrated the dig site. And then they've already been chastised once by Death Troopers and Minister Hayden. And Ezra went full force on a Death Trooper, gave him the Jedi mind trick, told him we didn't need to see your identification. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Gave him the whole bit. And this Death Trooper moved along. So they are sort of under the radar right now for the time being. But again, they're at this giant mural that is basically the focal point of this entire excavation. So the fact that they're able to get so close for as long as they do, I found somewhat interesting. Again, Minister Hayden is called away to talk to Palpatine and deal with other matters and look at some other artifacts that have been found. So, you know, they're giving you excuses why no one's necessarily paying attention. But again, this mural is gigantic. So the fact that like two people in speeder bike armor can just walk up to it and do their thing. I mean, whatever. But again, Sabine's looking at this. She has a hologram. She took a holo recording of the tablet that Ezra had presented and is trying to like sort of decipher the artwork going on here because, as she says, all art has something to say. All art says something. And so she's looking at the hand placements and, you know, she's piecing together some sort of star chart because when you pull back on this mural and you see, I mean, you really get the whole sort of like grandiose cosmos when you pull back on this mural. But she notices that the hands are sort of like the key thing in this. The hands of the Father, the Daughter, and the Son. And Ezra remembers what Kanan taught him. Like, let the stone tell its story. So he's going to try and commune with the stone and see what he can make happen here. Now, again, so far the Empire's been rebuffed by all this. Hayden tells Palpatine this as well. That, you know, the secrets of the temple have not been unlocked to him just yet. But it is a matter of time. And that's what Sabine also reminds Hera, that like they're going to figure this out eventually. That's why we have to stop them. So as Ezra is about to commune with the rock, some stormtroopers come over. They notice some speeder bike pilots where they aren't supposed to be. And Sabine goes about trying to distract, and eventually just gets herself in trouble. She cites military regulations that aren't valid for this operation, and then it's a fun back and forth between them as she pulls them away from looking at the mural and facing Ezra as he's trying to do his thing. And then as they walk away to go check, they're gonna go check the office. All three of them, Sabine and as well. Again, part of providing the distraction for Ezra to do his thing. Ezra communes with the hand on the rock of the daughter, and it unlocks. The stones begin to slide around. The hands move in different directions. And all of a sudden, the Lothwolves on the bottom of the painting animate and look at Ezra before running off and encouraging him to follow them. And Ezra does, slowly but surely. He begins to follow the Lothwolves away from the giant mural of the Mortis gods. And he finds himself looking at the Lothwolves running in a circle, a gateway. The gateway that Hayden, I can't get it right. Hayden and Palpatine have been looking for this entire time. Now, at this point, Sabine has been discovered by Minister Hayden as well, and he puts the whole thing on alert. So Ezra's running out of time, and as the stormtroopers come around the corner, Sabine yells for Ezra to go, and Ezra does, and he runs through the rock face, through the gateway, and enters another plane of existence. It's a funny bit where the stormtroopers try to follow him. Of course, the gateway's off by that point, so they just smash into a rock and fall down. I did want to back up a little bit, too, because when Ezra and Sabine are first looking at the giant mural, it is big-time Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark vibes, like the map room scene specifically. There's even like a little bit of an ode to that with the music score that Kevin Kiner's playing in the background. So that's where we end. So Sabine's been captured, she's been discovered, and Ezra has disappeared into the gateway. But now Minister Hayden knows that the rebels know how to unlock the gateway, so he needs Sabine to help him do the same thing for Palpatine. But that's where we leave the episode, right? Ezra's jumped through a rock, Sabine is captured, Zeb, Chopper, and Hera have had to fall back because of the excavation site being put on high alert. Again, very much an opening salvo type of episode to kind of kick off our final four for the end of Star Wars Rebels. So a good first step. I think it's like an 8-ish episode. 8 buckets is probably where I'd land on this one. It's enjoyable. Again, I like exploring the Lothwolves and their connection to the planet, seeing the way they are able to sort of like traverse the planet through like what I can only describe as like force wormholes. It's very, very cool, very, very neat. And again, the animation of the mural coming to life, the 2D art on top of the 3D art, it's very cool. It's a great visual of that painting coming to life, of the Lothwolves coming to life on the painting. Really well done, really well executed. And we'll get into more of the nitty-gritty on what happens next on our next episode, which isn't too far away, friends, because, again, we're doing 2 a week to close out Rebels and get ready for the Darth Maul series. I'm sorry, just Maul. Formerly Darth Maul. Just Maul now. Shadow Lord. Coming, I believe it's April 6th. So, yeah, we're going to get Rebels wrapped up, and then we're going to kick off our coverage of the new Maul series. And it's going to be very, very exciting. I'm fired up for that as well. It's going to be good stuff. All right, like I said, 8 buckets for this one. We'll be back in a couple days. In the meantime, Bucketheads, go out there, be great Star Wars fans. Kind, supportive, respectful, understanding, tolerant, and patient. If you can, spread the word about the podcast. Make sure you're following us on the socials at Mando_Vision on X and Insta, MandoVision at Blue Sky. You can email me, MandoVisionTom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. And if you have the time and the inclination, sweet 5-star reviews. They help us out so very much, and we would be delighted if you would spread the word. All right, Bucketheads, again, we'll be back later this week for another exciting installment of our Star Wars Rebels rewatch. 1 episode down, 3 to go in the final 4. And it's going to be a doozy. I can't wait to talk to you guys and gals and everybody all about these. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Just keep your bucket on for the next couple of weeks. This will be fine. All right, let's go. Let's get out of here. You know what that means. This podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way. You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.
Admiral, we have enemy ships in Sector 47.
It's a trap!